Hey, what's going on everyone? Vega here from SerpentX Tech, and in this video I'm gonna kind of just go through fixing all the S9 ASICs. If you want to know the steps I took and like actually see those steps, you can go check out a previous video where I repaired the client's first one, which is only using one fan because the secondary fan was broken. And that's the same story with this one as well, is only one fan works, the back one, not the front one. But as far as the process of getting this working again, if I can, you can go check out that video. I'll have it linked in the description. But I'm just going to start knocking it out, and I will summarize the actions for each individual one. What's ironic is this thing still has the warranty sticker, which obviously is not under warranty, at least not anymore. So I'm just going to blow through that and just try to get everything tore down and repair as many as I can, with a summary towards the end, or if there's anything immediate that I need to share with you, then I will, bring you guys back and insert those clips here and there. But I just really need to, in between my full-time job, family, personal life, all that stuff, I need to just continue working on these. This is why usually at a farm you have a team of people that are just dedicated to rotating ASICs out, maybe doing a little bit of ASIC repair or sending units out to ASIC repair companies to get them worked on, rather than just one person, because it is a little bit time consuming. So I'm just gonna get cracking on the one inside. Each one of these are not working according to what the owner told me, and the power supplies are probably gonna be even worse, but I do need to dig into them very carefully and make sure they're working. Step one, test the fans before I even remove them. I have a fan splitter connected to a motherboard, which is not gonna provide enough power for these particular fans. They draw a lot of amps compared to a normal 120 millimeter fan. So I plugged it in, confirmed that the back fan is working, but the front fan is not. Step two, take everything out. Fan, the plate that goes on the front and back, take out and disconnect every ribbon cable, and you're gonna need to move these hash boards out individually one by one. And then step three, the control board. So one, test the fans. Two, take off the fans and the plates on either side. Three, remove the hash boards. Four, remove the control board. Once the chassis is down to bare metal, clean up the chassis, the grooves that the boards slide into, clean up and kind of prep use an electronic safe cleaner to clean and prep the boards themselves. Make sure there's nothing blown on it, capacitors, anything like that. Look at the PCB is in good condition, and then once everything's cleaned up, reassemble and test, which we're going to do after I go through all five, and then one by one test them over here in my little setup. I could move it out to the garage, but I get another Ethernet cable that runs to where my immersion cooling system is. All right, so we're moving on. One board on this second one is not working. I will need to go back to the drawing board. And the power supply, one of the power supplies that we have here, did have a check mark on it. It just has this plastic covering that goes over the components. There's the fan. Be very careful with that. You can actually see the fan wire go across. Be extremely careful, work in this environment. You can see all the wires are not only screwed in but soldered in, and we got transformers, rangefinder right here to detect whether it's 120 or 240 volt, big capacitors, a lot of what runs this power supply, which is the APW3 1600 watt power supply, it looks like. And it was very dirty, so I cleaned up certain areas. I don't see a lot of corrosion, except looks like some humidity or water got in this area, as you can see from that screw. It didn't get in on this side. Those look pretty good. That looks good. That looks good. But definitely a lot of dust, which I cleaned out as much as possible without actually tearing this whole thing apart, and cleaned up the fan and everything. Blew it out, and just gonna put everything back together. The fan and the grills and the screws that were on this side were really rusted, so I'm giving it a nice fresh coating. And all I'm doing with that is painting it with Rust-Oleum. But I take a brass brush
a little bit of sandpaper, clean it up. I'm just coloring or trying to get the heads of the screws, you know, to stop rusting. And then I'm going to put everything back together, make sure that power supply works and, you know, provides enough juice to the ASIC.
Then it's just going to continue on with the rest of these.
You can see the front side of that power supply is very rusted, so we got a lot of humidity or water or moisture or whatever that that power supply was sitting in or near. So on this third ASIC, I already cleaned and prepped everything, but I heard something rattling around and one of the heat sinks fell off of this chip. Now it's very hard to tell, but there's an epoxy, a thermal epoxy that goes on top of this chip, and I don't have that thermal epoxy. This is the BM1387 chip. Very hard to see, and I could feel the epoxy residue on that, but you gotta be very careful with these guys. You don't want the heatsink to break off of these particular chips. So I'm gonna find a way to securely and safely attach it back on so we can get these boards back in this third ASIC. And
real quick update, these containers that the S9's been sitting in, not only were they just grody and starting to rust in some areas, but they were just bad, and the board grooves are very hard to slide in and out. So I'm cleaning them with old, kitchen scrub pads, not what you use to clean your dishes, and just getting them degreased and cleaned up as best as I possibly can, inside and outside, as I go through each and every one of them. This was probably the worst one. It was really caked in these grooves or slots. So before I continue, because we're only up to 5 right now and I got one more, technically 2 more, I wanted to show you kind of the before and after. You could see the before, clearly these units were sitting, if they were in storage, in a wet storage environment, or maybe they got some water that got into the storage area or wherever these were running or held, and things are just rusting apart. So the before, right, the hash boards are really cruddy. I showed you some of that in some of our teardowns. It's just, even with a light cleaning, which this board right here has been, it's still very bad. This is gonna need some solution to clean that up properly, but the overall case is just junk. You can see it's never been worked on because the warranty sticker's still on there. They basically got these and just ran it full bore, no care, and then when they stored it, they didn't store it properly. But this is the refresh, right? We cleaned off the rust. We're using rust prevention to try to slow down the ingress of this rust, and we take all hash boards out. We clean it up as I just showed you, the actual case. We clean up the boards, and I'm actually separating and identifying which ones are bad and which ones aren't. Individual hash boards mark with an X if they don't work, and if they're okay, they have a check mark. And the power supplies are unfortunately not much better. So tearing down into them, looking into them, again, moisture is getting in there. You don't want moisture inside your power supplies, but just cleaning it up as best I can, taking off this top cover, and clearly this one's been run into the ground. Look at those burnt connectors. So this power supply is technically done. We could possibly repin that, but I wouldn't trust the wires. I'm not even sure what that stuff is right there. That's the back end of the wire right there. That's not good. So this power supply is basically done, and that's not the only one that kind of got melted and burnt up. Probably sitting, the rest of the plastic is sitting in the back half of a hash board. Another one right there. But just not really taken care of, and even if you store it, you got to store it in a better place than that. But that's the before power supply. Here's the after. Again, trying to do my best to do some rust prevention, trying to mitigate and stop the ingress of rust on this container or on this power supply, taking it apart, cleaning up the internals, and then just getting it as best I can. These power connectors are still good, so we're good on that front, but that power supply is done. So just to let you know the before and after, big difference. Not every one of them is going to work, as we just saw, but let's finish this up so we can summarize and get out of here. Hey, so still going through every single one. These are all the hash boards and all the containers cleaned out. I got to just put them together and find working boards, but I just wanted to show you. This is what rubbing alcohol looks like. Okay, this is the natural color
It's just clear. This is what rubbing alcohol looks like after we've cleaned off some of these hash boards. You could see the sediment there at the bottom. A lot of sand, a lot of grit. Looks like some thermal paste, metal flakes, or corrosion type flakes. Not sure. You could see a lot of it just floating around there. You know, some of those contaminants, if they're sitting on a couple solder joints or specific areas on these boards, that could be very problematic, creating a short, causing issues, especially since there was just so much corrosion on these. They look so much better. Still need to connect a couple of the heat sinks that have fallen off, but I'm gonna need to figure out something because I need to get this epoxy that's on the chip off first. So cleaning these things up was a pain, and I didn't have an ultrasonic cleaner, even though I would have rather preferred one. So there's the next best thing, you know, 91% or 99% isopropyl alcohol, a tub, and an automotive soft bristle brush, like really soft for automotive detailing. Worked like a charm because I'm done with all the boards. So it's just a matter of putting them all together. All right, so in summary, we have 4 ASIC containers or S9 containers inside. Technically 4 control boards. One of them's up here. All the control boards work. 3 power supplies out of the 5 do not work, and most of these hash boards don't work. There's no hash boards in there. That was my test bed that I've been testing each hash board individually, and you can see that most of these have an X on them. Okay, these do not work. There needs to be some additional investigation. This one has a question mark. So this one sort of works, but I need to figure out why. So only 29 chips show up out of 63. These 2 are also not working. And then these 2 up here are questionable. So this one does work. This one has another question mark on top of it. But out of all this, so basically out of 6 S9s and 5 power supplies, only 2 power supplies and technically 3 S9s work, because we could get the 2 questionables, so that questionable, and this one that's working into another one. So that would be 3 out of 6, so 50% of the S9s. But the corrosion just did its damage. I mean, I don't know if this was stored in a storage unit on the floor, so water got into the power supplies. But some of those power supplies, the fans will spin up. But it's not actually putting out any power. It's not being distributed through the connectors, so the control board won't even power on at all. So let's go look at the ones outside hashing right now. So we got one up here, hashing away just fine, next to the M30S Plus, and that one's running pretty good using the power supply. And then this one, the fan sounds bad. If I step away here, I don't want you to get the wind. It's a nice rainy day as well. This one, the fan sounds really bad, or something is rattling really bad. I'm not sure if it's the control board or something on the control board, but probably gonna replace this chassis because the other chassis, the fans are at least a little bit better. I got 1 fan per machine. All the other fans are dead, but we got 2 of them hashing away. They're only set at 950 watts. So I'm trying to run it as efficiently as possible. The best way to run this is, what we can do is we can take 1 hash board out of these 2, so it'll be 2 in each machine, and we can technically get maybe 4 or 5 ASICs up and running, only utilizing 2 hash boards total. But these are running and running well, 24/7 stable. And as I just said a second ago, if we steal 2 from those other boards and combine it with and we could get the questionables working, you know, that will be 1 ASIC. Steal 1 from outside, combine it with this one, that'll be another ASIC. So that'll be 4 total. And then we have 1 extra board that we might be able to hopefully get one of these working, but we will come back to that in a different video. Show you a couple of areas to check on these boards, to probe to see if we're getting voltage or anything, because you can plug in 1 6-pin and then probe certain areas of the board to make sure, you know, we're getting voltage and the proper readings. One of these questionable boards though does kick on, but the temperature sensor is not reading, and if the board is not being able to detect the temperature reading, it's not going to stay running 24/7. So a lot of work to do. These might just be a write-off for the client.
But this is the price you pay when you don't store these things properly. Even if you're not using them and don't plan to use them for years to come, you should really always store your electronics as best you can. Don't put them in a crappy environment or a storage container that tends to flood, especially in Florida. But that's going to do it for today's video. Please do me a favor on the way out. Sorry it was so long, first off. But hit the like button on the way out. Make sure to get subscribed, hit the notification bell to stay up to date, as well as check out some of the links in the description. I hope to support the channel and what we do here. And I hope to catch you in the next one. But all control boards work. It's just a lot of hash boards and power supplies that don't.